Thank you. Hi guys. This is obviously our fifth session before the rookie qualifier is coming up. We're gonna be talking about packing and preparing for a qualifier as that's coming up. That phase of the qualifier preparation is coming up very soon for you guys. So my name is Avanish, and I'll be
I'm
presenting.
Eduardo.
Yeah, and we'll be walking you guys through the basics of this.
All right. So, um, just kind of a general outline on something that going forward, obviously this qualifier, it's a little too late to start doing these things, but going forward for your next qualifiers, something you can implement about 3 weeks prior to the qualifier. We kind of like to finalize our mechanical design. Obviously, if like there's some repairs needed or something, that's totally fine. But we don't like to add any new innovations that close to a qualifier. And then that's also typically when we start practicing with other drive teams. Um, so this is teams that you might want to partner up with going into the finals. And then 2 weeks prior, you're going to keep practicing. If that's by yourself, that's okay. If that's with a partner, that's totally fine too. And then this is also when you want to start writing your judging presentation script, which is going to be a big part of something we'll talk about later. And then 1 week prior, obviously, tons of practice as much as possible. And then robot and judging practice specifically. And then you want to finalize your documentation.
Yep. And then, just talking about what you guys want to pack as a team before heading into a qualifier. I'll start off with the three categories: robot materials, materials for judging, and finally materials for your pit. So as far as the robot, you obviously need the robot at the qualifier to compete in the matches. And then for the robot, make sure that you're packing multiple batteries if possible, because there can you need for having fresh batteries is a big advantage in the field. It'll just help the robot run a lot smoother than a battery that's close to dying. Or so if you don't have multiple batteries, or if you do have multiple batteries, having a battery charger there is very important because you can just charge the batteries up in the pit as your robot's running on the field. You obviously need the controllers and the control board for the robot. So having a controller board that holds the controllers together so they're not everywhere is also very helpful. And having a charger for that controller board and the controllers is also very important. As far as judging goes, it would be very helpful to if you guys prepared like a poster for the judges, helps them have a visual to look at when you're talking to them, keeps them engaged. And we would also advise that you guys print 4 copies of your engineering portfolio if you guys make one, and 1 copy of your engineering notebook. We advise that you submit two to the judging panel, and then the other two would be to keep in your pit and to hand to the judges if they're okay with it during your judging presentation. And finally, this is required. You guys need to print out your team roster from the first website and hand that in when you submit your engineering portfolios in the beginning of the qualifier. And finally, talking about stuff for your pit. Every team member that's in the pit needs safety glasses on at all times. That's very important. That's a very important rule that first follows, as FTC follows, is that everyone needs safety glasses when they're in the pit and in the match area. So make sure that you have some extra safety glasses on hand if anyone forgets or anyone doesn't have any. And make sure that you're printing and packing any handouts you want to give out to other teams before the qualifier because you might not find a printer at the event site. So make sure to print and pack any of those, and also tools and spare parts are also very important in case you guys need to do a repair on your robot. And also any decorations you want to do in your pit and snacks for the team because it is going to be a long day would also be handy to have on the day of. So these are some essentials that we think are good to pack for the qualifier.
So those were kind of the team essentials. As far as individual things that each person should bring, obviously, if you're going to be using a laptop, make sure you bring that along with a charger. It's a day-long event, so you'll most likely be there from 7 a.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. So you definitely want to have a laptop charger if you're going to be using a laptop and a phone charger for your phone. Um, so that can be a portable charger, just a cable, whatever works, but I would highly advise bringing some sort of charger. And then as far as food goes, like I said, it's a day-long event. You're going to be needing breakfast and lunch. So teams need to coordinate that, but um, if your team isn't bringing snacks and each person has to bring their own thing, that's something you need to plan accordingly. Make sure you bring lots of water. It's a long day. You will be thirsty. And then, yep, I already mentioned that. And grabbing a table in the cafeteria is very useful, not only to have a place to eat lunch, but it also declutters the pit because you can keep your jackets there, any backpacks, things like that, you can keep in your own table in the cafeteria. And that will just make the pit so much more cleaner, which is very efficient.
So now that we're done with what to pack, let's start talking about the lead up to the qualifier. This is very important for you guys as you guys are in this phase right now. So when you're 1 week out for the qualifier, this is sort of like the grind time where the entire team is focused in on the qualifier, getting ready, getting in the rhythm. And so let's talk about briefly what we advise you guys do in this 1 week. So let's say that your qualifier is on the 31st of May, which will happen because we're in Wisconsin. So on the 26th, on that Monday, we advise that you guys have a full team meeting with everyone in your team, coaches, team members, parents, if they want to be there, to plan the week's activities, make sure that everyone's on the same page, make sure that everyone knows what to do and knows where to go. And this is also, as Eddie said, you should be doing some robot drive practice, making sure that everything's working with your teleop, autonomous, endgame, etc. And also make sure that you're continuing to work on your judging script because that's a very important part of the qualifier experience. It's 10 minutes with the judges. Make sure you guys have materials for a 5 minute presentation and be ready to answer any questions that they ask you. And finally, make sure that you're editing and finalizing your documentation, whether that be your control award submissions, engineering notebook, engineering portfolio, making sure that's up to date, up to your standards, and making sure that's perfect for the judges to review in the competition.
Mhm. So on Tuesday, what we like to do especially is to have a um, kind of checklist of things that have to be done by Tuesday. So on Tuesday, all of our documentation is done. So that is something that you can print and hand to a judge Wednesday morning if you'd wanted to. Going forward, if they go to a virtual setting, that's something that you would have to do earlier. But as of right now, all the documentation is on paper. And then complete judging script so that you don't have any last minute modifications. Obviously, as you get further down the week and you're actually practicing that, if something is too long or too short, you can make last minute modifications, but it's something that you want to have a good idea of what you're going to be practicing later in the week. And then this is usually where we like to have a judging practice with the script so that team members can learn exactly what they need to say and memorize it to the point where it's not robotic. And then you're also going to be doing a little bit of Q&A. So that prepares you for the 5 minutes questions that the judges ask you in your actual presentation, and then also for any pit judges that might come see you.
Yep. And then next day, Wednesday, you want to keep doing your robot drive practice, but also making sure that your drivers aren't driving the robot to the point where it's being dysfunctional or it's breaking or parts are wearing out. To make sure that's why we spaced it out between Monday to Wednesday. So making sure that everything's still working, you guys are fine tuning stuff. And also, this is very important, making sure that on Wednesday you make a plan for how everyone is going to get there and get back home. And this is a good time to make sure that the people that you think are going to come are going to be there. So make sure that you take it like a sort of like an attendance of who's going to be there on Saturday. Kind of do like a checklist. Are you coming? Are you coming? How are you going to get there? Do you have that plan? So making sure that everyone has a direct plan, a concrete plan of transportation, getting themselves there and getting themselves back is very important for Wednesday.
So on Thursday, this is usually where we like to have our final drive team practice. And that goes hand in hand with a final maintenance on the robot. So, for example, if you have a part that very commonly wears out, something that you might not have replaced that may break down, in the qualifier, that's something that usually we like to replace or repair before the qualifier to prevent that from occurring. And then you have your first full team judging practice without the script. By now, you should have already memorized the script to an extent. Obviously, if you need to check the script to see like a one-off sentence or something, that's totally fine. But you want to avoid using a script if possible.
Yep, and the final day before the qualifier, Friday. This is a very important day as this is the final stretch before the qualifier. This is when we like to have our final full team judging practice without a script, as Eddie was talking about, making sure that everyone has their script memorized and everyone's ready for some Q&A with the judges. And usually after that judging practice, as a team, get kind of packed up for the qualifier, loaded up and everything in one van or in a couple of cars if that's what you guys are doing, and making sure that your a qualifier plan for the next day is set. And also, this is very helpful. Make sure that you're planning on leaving from like a one common location. What we as the gearheads usually do is we meet at one at the coach's house, and the coach will usually take an attendance, making sure that everyone that said they're going to be there is there in the morning. And then we drive off and start at the same time so that we're not getting to the qualifier and wondering, oh, when's Eddie going to get there? When's he going to get there? Where is he? So making sure you guys are doing those things on Friday is very important for tomorrow to run very smoothly Saturday.
All right. So for the day of the qualifier, Avanish mentioned this on something that you do on Friday. It's a plan for what you're actually going to be doing that day. So you have to know exactly who does what. So it's good for everyone on the team to know who is the human player, who are the drivers, who's the coach, just so if another team comes and asks you, you can answer that. It doesn't have to be necessarily one person or another. Everyone should know who everyone is on the team. That goes for scouting and game strategy. So if you happen to be in the position where you're likely to be an alliance captain, and other teams come over and ask you, "Hey, would you be willing to pick us?" Whatever, whatever. You need to know, "Hey, who should I defer this question to?" And then knowing who should be in the pit at all times is very important. What we typically like to do is have at least two people in the pit at all times. So if judges come over and talk to us, they can say, "Hey, the team is at such and such, call them over." And then there's always someone there to answer questions. Then who will be communicating for other teams, kind of like I mentioned in a situation where you might be an alliance captain. Know who is getting food, whether that's going to be a centralized team thing, if everyone's going to be getting pizza from the same place, or if each person is bringing their own food. That's something you have to know ahead of time. And then kind of assigning leaders for tasks. So who will be making the decision in case that we are the alliance that has the first overall pick. And then planning transportation. That's something that we talked about as something we do on Wednesday. So if you are carpooling, know who is going in what car there and back. If someone has to leave halfway through or someone has to arrive there late, that's something you should know ahead of time. That shouldn't be something that you figure out the day of. And then organizing communication is always important. What we have is we have a group chat. So if something's urgent, like, hey, judges are in the pit, everyone has to come talk to them. That's something that it has to be quick. It has to be fast. It can't be something that you're going to see that message 3 hours later. It has to be something that you see in an instant. So text messages are usually the best way to do that.
Yep. That kind of wraps up what we had for you guys. Do you have any questions for us? Anything we can answer right now? Feel free to ask. Or if Mr. New said you have any questions that you think would be
No, thank
beneficial for
you.
the
Thank
recording.
you,
Yeah.
folks. I know,
Yeah.
I think this is it lays out kind of a summary of lots of things we've talked about in previous sessions. And some of it is, we're past the timeline for some of it, but I think it's a good way to kind of lay out some of the discussion we've had in the previous five. 5 webinars. So, Nerds on a Mission, you guys were politely raising your hand. Please go ahead and unmute and
So we have a question about judging. Are we able to run our robot in the judging room? Not like driving, but showing how the arm works?
Uh, Usually they advise against it because of just safety issues, but if it's, I think it's a situational thing. I would ask beforehand, ask your judges if they're okay with you running a small part of the robot, make sure that it's far away from them enough that no one gets hurt. And I think if they give you the A-OK, then you guys are free to do that. But
Mhm.
we've usually steered against running the actual robot around in the judging practice in the judging room. Also because we don't want to accidentally break anything while we're in that room. Also,
Mhm.
so I would also it's a situational thing. Ask your judges beforehand and get the A-OK from them. And then if you're
Mhm.
confident that nothing's going to break, go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
So
that. Oh, go ahead, Edward. Yeah.
what I would suggest is, you said it's your arm.
Yes,
Okay.
just our arm movements. We won't be driving the robot at all.
Okay. So if it's something that you can show mechanically instead of actually turning on the robot and initializing it, what I would recommend is just you can move it yourself. I think you should be able to. That's something that we have done in the past to avoid having to, turn the robot on and cause any kind of issues with the judge.
Yeah, I think it's good advice. Ask the judges if there's a question. They're willing to say yes or no. And one thing I would be just cognizant of is the time factor, right? You have 15 minutes, 5-minute presentation, only these 10 minutes for judging, questions and answers. And then if you divide that between robot and outreach, you're down to 5 minutes for each of those topics. So just don't put yourself in a position where you might be, if you're wasting 60 seconds on starting something up, you could put yourself in a disadvantage because you just don't lose a good bit of your time. So just be cognizant of that. And if you have questions about it, ask the judges. I think it's okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
You got something in the chat.
Yep, just 24,297 saying, yeah, they're okay. All right. Good. Hey, listen, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap up here. Okay, awesome. Listen, best of luck to all of you as you approach the qualifier on Sunday. Reach out by email. We've had quite a number of questions from the webinars come in. After the webinars, we're always happy to answer that. And safe travels and good luck on the competition on Sunday. There are a lot of resources at the competition on Sunday, so watch for the lunchtime kind of demonstrations. There will be a staffed technical support booth. So if you have questions about, this isn't working, I can't find this, or I broke apart and I need a replacement, a big part of FIRST and gracious professionalism is teams helping other teams. So look around for that help, and we'll try to make as many resources available as we can for you while you're there as well. So take care. All
See
right.
you guys
Bye
there.
now.
Thank you.